What's up, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Wizards Latest. I'm your host and DC sports fan, Ben Robertson, and on this page, we break down all the biggest headlines surrounding the Washington Wizards. So, as always, make sure you've hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. Drop your comments with any thoughts you might have for me on the video or anything you want to hear me talk about in the future. As always, guys, appreciate all of the support. Keep tuning in here Monday through Friday. Today, we got to talk about the Malik Beasley situation. Should Washington have any interest in the free agent? Then we'll talk about a pair of Wizards landing on the top 100 player list of NBA 2K26 ratings. Then we'll chat about what success looks like for Alex Sarr going into year two. And lastly, who will the Wizards' next All-Star selection be? Once again, guys, appreciate all the support here on the page. Let's talk Malik Beasley, maybe the biggest storyline going on in the NBA right now. He is no longer the target of a federal investigation regarding gambling. Of course, was set to re-sign with the Detroit Pistons earlier this offseason on a potential 3-year, $42 million contract. And then bang, that news hit. That contract or those contract talks were shut down, and Malik Beasley's future has really been uncertain. He's coming off one of the best years of his career, averaged more than 16 points per game on 41% three-point shooting, more than 9 three-point attempts per game. So proved he's not only an efficient three-point shooter, but also can be a volume three-point shooter. It really was an impressive season for him. And again, after playing the last 2 years of his career on sort of prove it 1 year deals, was set to sign that 3-year contract before, all that news hit and those talks were shut down. Now that he's been cleared or no longer the target of this investigation, many people's first thought is that, okay, he'll just kind of go back to talks with Detroit, sign there. The only problem is they can't offer him the same deal they once could. And really, now the situation is largely dependent on what Malik Beasley's priorities are moving forward. Does he want to, be on a contending squad? Does he want to just get signed and get comfortable as quickly as he can? Or does he want to get back to around where that contract was going to shake out to be? And that's kind of where I think a team like Washington really does come into play. If it is, the third option of those choices where he is worried and wants to get, at least close to what he was going to get paid. Remember, a lot came to light here with this investigation, potentially some financial issues for Malik Beasley. You wonder if maybe that, has any effect on his mindset regarding all of this at all. Of course, I'm not a cap expert. Washington is hard. I will say, though, Washington is hard capped at the first apron this upcoming year, but they still do have the mid-level exception available to use, which is why they could have the flexibility to sign Malik Beasley this year. And again, dependent on where his priorities are, maybe he wants to get to a contending squad. Maybe that would be his preference. But if nothing, shakes out this week, whether he doesn't find the contract or the team that he's trying to land on, I don't mind this deal for either party. Or if a deal was worked out that, looked like that, 3-year, $42 million type range, for Malik, again, could get him to sort of the ballpark of where he was going to be before all of this drama sort of unfolded. For Washington, we talk so much about how next year, maybe the team really not quite going all in yet in terms of competing. Of course, holding on to next year's first round pick, very important. But if you sign him to a 3-year deal, well, all of a sudden, years 2 and year 3 of that contract are times that the team is looking to compete, and he could potentially be a contributor, a very solid one, to that squad. I also think if he has a nice start to next year, he becomes a trade deadline asset and candidate to get flipped for some capital and some value back there. It would be a workable sort of dealable contract in that scenario. So going to keep, monitoring the Malik Beasley situation as the league is throughout this week and throughout this offseason. Not sure that's necessarily a priority for Will Dawkins and co. But again, if nothing sort of comes to fruition elsewhere for him, that's not something I would mind seeing at all. Let's talk a little bit about some 2K ratings that are out. Of course, NBA 2K26 release date getting closer and closer, officially set to drop on September 5th. Early access versions start releasing on August 29th. Want to talk about a couple Wizards landing on the top 100 list for player ratings in the game. Both Alex Sarr and CJ McCollum on that list at 81 overall. Official ratings. Pretty interesting when you look at McCollum. Lowest initial rating for him since 2K15 when he was a 72 overall. I really think, I know he's starting to get older, into his 30s now. I know the injuries started to become a little bit of an issue over the last few years with McCollum, but I think people are sleeping on him just a little bit. Remember, he still averaged 21 points per game a season ago. It was his 10th straight year averaging 20 plus in the NBA. When he's on the court, he's still a positive, productive player. I think he's going to have a nice start to the year, like I talked about a little bit previously there with Beasley. I think if that Beasley situation came to fruition, I think McCollum is going to have a nice start to the year, and then become a trade deadline asset. Maybe even get something decent back in return for him. I really do think he's going to show people he's got some left in the tank when this season rolls around. And then the Alex Sarr, the other player landing on that list, also at an 81 overall. Nice jump from his initial ranking, or rating, I should say, last year when he was a 75 overall, but a slight dip from his final 2K25 rating at an 83 overall. So again, both of those guys at 81s to start off 2K26. And it sort of got me thinking, what does success look like for Alex Sarr going into year two, going into next season? Of course, we've all really enjoyed watching him and Bilal Koulibaly here in French Eurobasket prep action, Eurobasket tournament getting started here this week. We all want him to reach his potential, of course, as quickly as possible. But everybody understood when Sarr was drafted, the team realized it was a raw piece of talent that was going to take time to develop. Remember, he's still just 20 years old, but there are a few markers I'm going to be looking for next year that I want to see growth and improvement on. First two really statistically things I'm looking at are field goal percentage and rebounding average. I think both of those things need to go up. I'll, of course, include three-point percentage and field goal percentage. Most three-pointers made ever last year by a rookie center. The problem is he only shot 30% from beyond the arc. And, if you like that he has the touch and the ability to knock down the long ball, but when you're shooting that low of a percentage, and really as a five-man, as a center, when you're shooting that low of a percentage from the floor, it sort of cancels all that, good shooting or nice touch out. I think a lot of that also is just going to be field goal percentage wise as well. Just a lot to do with his shot selection. I think he just settles a little bit too much for some of those outside shots. Has to get stronger, and we've seen him add a little bit of weight already here this offseason. That'll help him at both ends of the court, both with his finishing, which will, of course, help the field goal percentage. And then I talk about the rebounding, really defensively. He's got to become a better rebounder. He's a decent offensive rebounder, but I feel like there's too many times when a shot goes up from the other team, and you're like, man, you were in position, or should have been in position to grab that board, and he just couldn't come up with it. I don't think he needs to think of himself. I know he's the number 2 overall pick, but I don't think he needs to think of himself as the only offensive focal point of this team. Not that I want him to be unaggressive, let's say, but when you have guys like, Trey Johnson, Cam Whitmore now, Keyshawn George, CJ McCollum even, Chris Middleton, the two veterans still there, guys that can put the ball in the basket. They can fill it up scoring wise. I don't think Sarr needs to come down the court every time and go, man, like I need to be scoring 20, 25 a night. I think especially early in games, if you can get him involved, maybe just rolling to the rim a few times, he can get himself going on some lob action, maybe get himself a putback slam here or there. I think that gets him kind of just in the mix of the game. It gets him engaged, and you have other players that can score really well when you can get yourself going and do just some of that dirty work, which I know maybe as a number 2 overall pick doesn't feel like the exciting, sexy thing, but I actually think when he puts his mind to it, especially on the offensive glass, he can be really good. I think that will get him going offensively. And then as the bag continues to develop and as game continues to develop, those other things will come along with it. Last thing I want to talk about here, real quick today. Who's the next All-Star on this Wizards roster? There hasn't been an All-Star selection since Bradley Beal in the 2020-2021 campaign. I'm not going to say I'm sure I know who it is, but I'm going to give you some options because I really think there are a bunch. Would love to know your thoughts on this down below. Obviously, the most apparent candidates here: Trey Johnson, Alex Sarr. I don't think Trey is going to maybe have an all-star level rookie year, but I think he's going to be pushed for that rookie of the year award just based off his situation compared to Cooper Flags. I think he's going to be in the mix for that. I don't think Alex Sarr, I think we're going to see another developmental type year from him, to be quite honest. And hopefully in year 3, year 4, we really start to see him hitting, that potential of what he can truly be. I think Keyshawn George has worked his way into the mix of maybe the next All-Star on this roster. He's really proved himself down the stretch of his last year, and of course looked great here in the offseason and summer league, and as well with Team Canada in international action. I think possibly the next All-Star is Cam Whitmore, to be quite honest. I feel like he's just poised to have, a big year 3 here, new team, new role for himself. Wonder if he's maybe the guy closest right now to that level in his career. The other guys you could put in that mix as well are Bub Carrington, Bilal Coulibaly. This is no shot at either of those players because I think they are future really, really good NBA players and talents, but I'm not sure that they're all-star level players. And I know a lot of people are going to take that, especially with Bilal Coulibaly, as a shot. I don't think it is at all. I think Bilal has the potential to be a key piece on maybe even a championship team with his defensive ability, his length and activity. I'm just not sure if the scoring and shooting numbers will ever be good enough or high enough to maybe to get him into all-star contention. But that'll do it for the show today, guys. As always, appreciate all of the support. Remember, like and subscribe down below. Drop your comments with any thoughts you might have on the video. Remember, episodes dropping here Monday through Friday, so keep tuning in, and thanks for watching another episode of Wizards Latest.